Here we go again. All right. Thank you, Eamon. So with voters clamoring for both sides to work together, will the partisanship be blocked out so we can actually reach a real deal on the fiscal cliff and also tax reform? With us now is David Callahan of Demos, and Justin Safey is with the Romney campaign. I'm going to put this out to both of you. Did Senator Schumer help or hurt the chances of a deal? David, let me start with you.
Well, I don't know whether he helped or hurt it, but I think he's making a good point. I mean, the other thing that Schumer said was that he's willing to talk about a grand bargain. He's willing to talk about cuts to entitlements, but there has to be more revenue on the table. The Democrats are not going to roll over and let some, the solution to this budget deficit be that it mainly in cuts that hurt the middle class and not raise taxes on the rich at all. That's just unacceptable.
Justin, where do you suspect the marker will be from the conservative standpoint as we begin negotiations on the fiscal cliff?
Well, I think the marker probably will be on tax cuts and not wanting to, on tax increases and not wanting to raise taxes while we still have unemployment that's still way too high in the United States. I think Senator Schumer hurt the process because it's typical Washington gamesmanship, trying to put pressure on the Gang of Eight, a bipartisan group of Republicans and Democrats that are trying to solve this problem in a bipartisan way, and he's out there trying to position the group and trying to put pressure on them from the outside. I think
David, I didn't understand that at all. Why is he talking at all at this point?
Right.
David?
Well, just to be clear, the Gang of Eight doesn't have a proposal yet, but it's likely to look similar
That's not the spirit of the question. They're working on one, and already he's trying to interfere before they get started, right?
Well, it's likely to look like the Gang of Six proposal back in July, and that was an unacceptable proposal. There was almost $3 billion in spending cuts and just $1 trillion in tax cuts. So basically, after this big, long binge of low tax rates, the bill comes due, and the Gang of Six, now the Gang of Eight, wants the middle class to largely pick up the bill through cuts to spending. That is unacceptable. That's not the basis for a good faith negotiation. That is the basis for a complete Republican victory.
Well, right, Justin, I would assume that a good faith Republican coming into these negotiations would accept some sort of compromise on the revenue side. But I don't hear anybody saying that, and I don't hear you saying that right now.
Well, no, because I don't want to do what Senator Schumer has done. I want to give the Gang of Eight the widest possible ability to negotiate and to come to some type of a bipartisan resolution. I think it's a mistake for anyone to be laying down so-called markers. Let the group do what they need to do and have the discussions without interference from outside folks. That will give the best chance of this group to actually get something done that can help avoid us going off the fiscal cliff.
Justin, this feels so bizarre to me. We've been through this 3 times. This group of 8 is going to do what? Cole Simpson is supposedly got done, but nobody seems to want to acknowledge. I mean, we've done this over and over and over again, and yet they never follow any of the proposals. What's the point?
Plus, they have a much shorter time window this time, too.
Right, they have a shorter time window, which is why I'm glad they're starting this now before Election Day. But, you know, look, let's not make any mistake. There are very significant, difficult challenges. We have a $1 trillion deficit as far as the eye can see, and hopefully Democrats will be willing to give something on entitlement reform, and Republicans will be able to compromise on some of their issues as well. But this is not easy. This is not easy at all, and that's why I think we all ought to give the Gang of Eight the widest possible latitude to come up with some type of a bipartisan compromise. But it won't be easy.
Handicap of both of you. Are we going to solve the fiscal cliff before we get to Jan 1? David?
Well, I think President Obama holds all the cards here, because basically if Congress does nothing, the Bush tax cuts are going to expire completely. And by the way, that would solve many of our fiscal problems over the next decade. Let's remember, those Bush tax cuts were meant to be temporary. We couldn't.
You'd have to get rid of them for every single income. You'd have to get rid of them for every single income level.
We could not afford them then. We cannot afford them now. We cannot.
So you would raise taxes on the middle class as well. That's what you're saying.
Realistically, I think those Bush tax cuts have to go in their entirety.
Wow. Okay, so you finally admitted that the spending that we have on the table.
I'm not admitting anything.
You can't give 100. You can't take 100% from the wealthy. You really got to dig down to the middle class.
I'm not admitting anything. I'm not admitting anything. I've been saying that for 2 years. For 2 years.
You're going to get rid of the Bush tax cuts on everybody. That's the middle class.
Those
Justin,
tax
you
cuts
got-
are unaffordable. They were unaffordable then. They're unaffordable now.
I got to go, guys. I'm sorry. I'm out of time. Justin, I apologize.
That's
I
all
meant
right.
to have both of you, but we'll talk to you later. Thank you both for joining
You know
us.
what
Thank
tax
you.
revenue did under Ronald Reagan from day one to the day he left?
What's
it went
that?
up 100%, even though they cut taxes dramatically. For you, double. Tax revenue to the government doubled in 8 years under
Thank
him.
you, Arthur Laffer.
Yes. All right. Don't forget, you can catch the vice presidential debate between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan tomorrow night right here on CNBC beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.